Hello, and welcome to episode 57 of Constructing Comics, a podcast building stories one page and one panel at a time. On this episode, we have a review of House of X4, It'll Be Done, and Powers of 10, issue 4, Something Sinister. This is your spoiler alert for House of X and Powers of 10, issue 4, and the issues that came before. Your creative teams are John Hickman, writer, penciler, R.B. Silva on Powers of 10, Pepe Larraz on House of X. Your colorist on both books is Marte Gracia, and your letterer on both books is Virtual Calligraphy and Clayton Cowles. Your editors on both books are Annalise Bissa, Cebulski, Jordan D. White. X-Men was created by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, and this is Matt, and I'm joined by Constructing Comics co-host Noah.
Hey there.
So Noah, why don't you start us off like you normally do with your general thoughts, and then we'll take a deep dive into the slides that you put together for us.
Yeah, House of X issue 4 was definitely the most stressful and emotional one yet. I mean, the one with Moira dying and coming back was definitely a really beautiful retrospective of the characters, but this one was definitely like a gut punch the whole time. And it was really good action and really really effective emotionally. And then Powers of X was a huge tonal shift where you get sort of more probably the most humorous issue yet with Mr. Sinister. And then at the same time, the most mind-bending, brain-frying issue where you're trying to keep track of all the high concept science fiction stuff going on at the end of it. Like it gets into real Stanley Kubrick territory at the end of the book, at the end of the issue. Yeah. So I loved them both. And I kind of wish I had read them weekly and not back to back because both were so jarring. And it was a real roller coaster to read both, but it was really good. And it was still, again, a rewarding experience, as it always is.
Yeah. So both of these books are sort of kicking off the second half of the series. You know, we had the first three, and these are both our issue 4. So this is, starting us into that last half. And the House of X was definitely an action-packed sort of sci-fi action, almost an action story. And then you're right, the tonal shift to Powers of 10, where we open up, we meet Sinister, he's wisecracking, and then it's just sort of like, a lot of setup for what we think that we're going to get in these last 2 issues in both series.
Yeah, it was a good, and it's interesting with Powers is that we learned something last time we spoke in Powers 3, that the year 100 wasn't in the current continuity, it was in another continuity.
Mm-hmm.
So now in Powers, that it seems like that timeline is completely gone, so we don't know what takes place in that period anymore, which is really smart of them. Like, we know what happens before and we know what happens at the end, but we don't know what bridges that gap right there. So yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, it's a cool bit of storytelling and a great way to handle that time travel paradox.
Yeah, it was a good. I'm looking forward to what the next issue of Powers is going to be like.
All right, so are you ready to break this down a little bit deeper?
Yeah, let me pull up the slides here.
So as House of X starts, we are on Krakoa, and we're with Magneto, Storm, and one of the actually Beast is there, and the 2 triplets are there. So this, you brought up the huge panel on this first page of the comic after the title page.
Yeah, and this is our first time seeing Storm like as a prevalent character. She was sort of more in the background in other issues. So now she's an active role. So it's cool to see all the X-Men and Beast too. Yeah. Beast is always in the background. So it's cool to see these 2 characters have an active presence now in the series.
Yeah, and I have to admit that when I read this, I didn't see Beast at first, and so I started reading the dialogue, and then I my eyes transitioned to Storm down here in the sort of the pond, the reflecting pool here, and then I went back up and I saw Beast in that blue and realized that he was the one speaking there.
Yeah, Beast is sort of like, he's just sort of he's not out of character in this issue. He's the guy operating all the technology.
Yeah.
This is a great panel, though. I love the design here. I will say that this page, I don't have the panel on here, is the first time I've ever looked at a panel, though. There's a close up on Storm's face that's not very flattering.
Oh yeah, the last panel of this. That eyebrow is a little it's a little high.
Yeah, it's a weird angle, and it's weirdly drawn. That was sort of the one panel I have to say in this whole series that I was kind of like, ugh, that's kind of ugly. But it doesn't take away from the whole issue being a good thing. But that was sort of the one where I was kind of like, oh, someone drew that really fast. Yeah. But this panel is beautiful. I love how it's composed, and then I love the colors, how they reflect how he uses the colors to sort of blend the reflections together in the water at the bottom here. I love the texture on the roots in the background. It's just it's again, just good artwork. But this was cool. I really liked this, like them all combining together to be sort of conduits for Jean to sort of connect all the X-Men back to Krakoa, and then Jean sort of appears in this water hologram.
Yeah, it was definitely very, very cool imagery that was brought up here.
Yeah, and the whole sequence where they're explaining how everybody's needs to be there to link everyone together is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was just a cool lead up to this big moment right here where all of a sudden she breaks through and this appears as a 3D image in the water. Yeah, it's a cool image. I love the lighting coming off of reflecting on this sort of like edge light right here along her face and back here as well. It's just good. Understanding lighting, that's something I'm still trying to grasp, but when someone knows enough to know that like light's coming from back here, so it's some of the light's going to reflect back here as well,
Yeah.
That's just good detail work right here from the colorist.
Yeah, and it's also really, really good consistency because the page before, we had the two, we have these two stations, and that one is, facing the left, and then as we switch to this view, that red reflection from that, what I'm assuming is coming from that bank of computers and that sort of organic structure there. That's the highlight that we're seeing. So is that the 180, like respecting the 180 rule with coloring?
Yeah, definitely it is. Yeah, it's just good continuity and that's just good color continuity. Well, thanks for pointing that out. I didn't notice that at first. That's a good point. Yeah, that's really good. But then moving on, sorry, I'm going to get my
it's okay.
Slides up here. Here we go. At the end of the last issue, it's not the Quinjet. Their jet's not called the Quinjet. It's just the jet, right? I don't know what it's called.
It's not it's not the one that looks like the SR-71 that they normally fly around in, but it's definitely, maybe it's outfitted for space travel or something.
Right, yeah. But their jet was exploded at the end of the last episode, and so they're all reeling from that. And this is what I didn't predict, was them killing off Archangel and Husk. I mean, I knew Husk was going to die, but like Archangel dying really fast, I was like, oh, wow. That was, I did not see that coming. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, a little bit, because, he's more of a more prevalent X-Men. So you think that he would have lasted a little bit longer.
Yeah, definitely. I was sort of surprised at how this issue went. It was kind of almost like Rogue One, a Star Wars story, that kind of thing, like that surprise where I was like, oh, they're going there, the whole issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a good surprise. Like I was like, oh, it was a very ballsy move to do what they do in this issue. Yeah.
We have Wolverine here who's healing himself.
Yeah. Whoops. There we go. But then they all decide that they're going to keep going with the suicide mission despite the heavy losses.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I love the sequence of Wolverine healing himself. I like how it starts off where it's just like just bone, like like barely anything holding his arm. But then by the next one, you can see like the tendons and the muscle sinews growing back around and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's a cool shot. But then I love this sequence right here. I loved the composition of this. This is a half of the page, and it's just these nice vertical panels right here.
Mm-hmm.
I like again like this sort of downward curve. It's it's not a straight line. It's sort of something that makes your eye rest a little more on each image. I also like that there are these lines in the background though guiding your eye as well. So there are the lines from the pipes right here. There are the lines from the soldiers and their guns right here, and there's the lines from these windows up here, and the lines from this sort of support beam right here, and these lines even. It's just cool. It's cool composition.
Yeah, and this is a combination of I guess show and tell, because
right.
The dialogue is sort of the mission status, the mission briefing, and as each aspect of that is being relayed, we're seeing it with the art. So it's a like I said, it's a combination of showing and telling. So you're not violating the show don't tell rule. You're sort of bending it a little bit.
Yeah, and there's something that they mention in the dialogue, but it's also demonstrated through the art that everyone is put into a place that they can handle. So like the two more combat oriented mutants are the ones sent into places where there's a lot of people. Yeah. So like Wolverine gets dropped into the heavy combat zones, and Mystique gets placed into a spot where she can blend in easier. Yeah, it's just cool X-Men action right here. I really love the beats on this page. It's sort of a page you might first, but I really like sort of these, wide close up, closer, close up, and then pulling back as the resolve sort of like, comes into the character. It's just a good way to heighten drama with your camera angles. I think they're really solid beats.
Yeah, and that the coloring here, we're really close to the sun, and you sort of the warm colors you as you're reading it, you feel the location, so many miles away from the sun, with all of these sort of bright warm reds and oranges. You feel the heat sort of radiating from the sun with the colors.
Yeah, and it definitely adds to the drama and the rage that the scientist is feeling in this moment, because her husband was the one that sacrificed himself to blow up the X-Men's jet in the last issue.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really love the dialogue right here. It's sort of one of those things where like we don't know this character very much, but yet we can empathize with her pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in this moment right here, this speech that this character gives, it's really it's really empowering, it's really inspiring, and you're kind of like, yeah, you kind of want her to kill the X-Men, but at the same time you don't. But it's sort of it's something where you for these characters as well as the X-Men, which is pretty great to do in a comic. Especially a superhero comic where they're good and bad guys all the time,
Yeah. Now, is this the same character that's with Nimrod in the future that's maybe just like evolved? Because they're very similar in aesthetics.
Yeah, I've wondered that too. And she doesn't have the red face. At least I don't remember seeing that. And I know the color, and it doesn't seem like that. But she definitely has the same outfit and aesthetics as far as like, not aesthetics, her prosthetics are the same. Like her robotic prosthetics are the same. So it could be, I think it is going to make sense that she's here right now while Nimrod's being built too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we might find that out, that's the case.
Yeah, I think so. Once Powers sort of confirms what's going on. I really love this panel right here. I talked about, I just love the facial expressions, but again, it's just, it was a good moment right here just to show the characters resolve after such, I love how simple this is, you know, just nice, simple composition. I love that the fire is sort of framing them. And then, I love just this simple exchange, this rhythm. And then, you know, she had this is a heavy dialogue panel. This isn't as heavier, but then like just the silent moment. This is show don't tell right here, you know, rather than like, she doesn't have to say you're right or anything like that for us to know what's going to happen next. Yeah. It's a great moment of drama. And then she gets into action about what they're going to do about the X-Men on the station, and gets really intense after that. I love this shot right here. Very cool spaceship shot. But then I love these little moments right here of the, you know, just the sound effects in the bottom corners of both of these panels right here. Yeah. Just to sort of show the sense of dread or the tension mounting with what the X-Men are doing. And then I love this dialogue right here that, you know, that was the sound of failure, Dr. Gregor, when it's because at this point, 2 of the X-Men have broken the bonds for the mother mold to fall back into the sun. And it's cool also to make the design of something, you know, like we've been seeing this structure for the last several issues, and for us to like, you know, there's a practicality to everything, and these arms being part of that design, like it's just sort of nice to have a practical design to something and then it paid off in the story. Not a lot of people pay attention to the geography, especially in comics, so that the geography of something like a space station, which, you know, is, you know, you don't have any real reference for it or anything like that. This is all pure imagination or inspiration from other things. And then that it has a practical, you know, use within the story is pretty great. I love this panel right here. Just a cool shot. You know, we don't have to see the action, but we have the action implied, and it's, you know, you can tell it's pretty brutal. I've been reading, so after last time I went back and I read the first couple issues of East of West again. Okay. And that's something Hickman does a lot, is sort of the implied action. Like he does show it every once in a while, but there are some great scenes in all his comics where it's just either sound effects or something like this, where you just see the aftermath.
Yeah. I'm in a writing class now, and they've been talking about like the reaction shot, and I think you get a lot of that in East and West, where like something happens and you're not necessarily seeing it, you're seeing like a character reacting to it. So you know something terrible has just happened, and you know, following the story along, you know what probably happened or what did happen, but you're just getting a reaction shot. And this is not quite a reaction shot. This is sort of like a aftermath shot of like what happened. So you know 30 seconds ago that this was just chaos, and now sort of this is the aftermath of that.
And it also doesn't, you know, when you have an action sequence, especially in comics, you know, you have the danger of any panel slowing the story down or slowing the pace down. So for them just to skip over him killing a bunch of dudes just so that they can keep the fast pace, the sense of urgency in this issue, like that's a really cool, masterful move right there, to understand that just because a lot of action is going on in the panels doesn't mean that the pace is fast. Yeah. You know, you can really slow it down even to focus on action beats. So just to be like, okay, we've only seen 2 panels of him fighting this guy, but we get that he's going to waste all of them, you know? And then, yeah, this moment as well right here, where you just sort of see the aftermath, because this isn't, you know, these are obstacles for them to get past, but they're not the most important obstacle. And the most important obstacle is to disconnect these arms. I really liked how these 2 pages sort of almost mirror each other in a way, where you have, again, a similar pace, you know. This is a little more dialogue heavy up here than this right here, but still you get like this, both of these, I think both of these panels you spend about the same amount of time on.
Mm-hmm.
And same with these two beats right here, you spend about the same amount of time on. So it was just cool to see 2 pages, like I was talking about, just sort of keep a pace and keep a rhythm of how big the panels are. I really like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And these, I'm pretty sure these are 2 on the same spread.
No, they actually work out to be the one that we're seeing here to the left is actually
Is a page turn.
The right facing page with a page turn to this one. So
that makes sense because that's a good page turn down there with the sound effects.
Yeah, because you're getting the sound effect and the 2 characters sort of looking up, trying to identify the sound, figure out the sound, and then we got sort of beat, and then we sort of have page turn, and then we have this character sort of announcing, things are not going well.
Yeah.
Those 2 sounds that you just heard were not good for you.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a good page turn then. Then we have this, again, I just really like these panels where you get the face in the water right here.
Mm-hmm.
Drawing liquids is hard, but at the same time, when it's done well, it's done really awesomely well. And I just really love how he draws liquids.
Yeah. It's got to be difficult to sort of give it structure and keep it fluid, as a liquid. So that's got to be sort of, you got to find the right middle ground there. So
yeah, definitely. And I love Gracias's, again, his edge lights. It's just beautiful. I love that.
We have a thumbprint showing up.
Yes. Yeah. We got there's a thumbprint shown in a lot of these issues, but yeah, that thumbprint right there. Yeah, that's I'm liking it. I'm liking the thumbprints. They should be in more comics. I'll have to do it in the next one we do. I like how again, I like the surprise of this moment right here where Monet is her name, right? And she enters into the picture, just to show again something's wrong, and then I predicted it and she was one of the first, but I kind of felt this to be kind of an empty an empty drama moment, because I was like, I don't know who you are, that kind of thing. Like, I should be sad, but I have no idea who this character is. This is the first moment where we get any kind of character development with her. But again, I'm not an X-Men fan. I haven't read much with her. So if I probably will regret what I'm saying now once I start reading more X-Men and I know the character better. And then I'll be like, oh my gosh, her dying is so sad. But first time I was reading through it, I was like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I know a little bit of Monet, but I had no idea that she could transform into what they show her to look like in a little bit. So don't feel too bad.
Yeah, so my negative, but my negative thing right there is nothing compared to how cool this her going out is. She really goes out like a real warrior, and it's awesome. And I love these moments right here, especially this one of the hand reaching through the glass. It's classic sacrifice move, that's just good visual language of stuff. I've just recently rewatched Wrath of Khan, which is one of my favorite movies. And, that was sort of one of the first movies to do the whole hand on the glass thing.
Yeah.
That's just a great image. And especially when it's done in comics, I always geek out about it. So love that. But yeah, this is just a good page. I really like this page right here and its design, and this cool moment of her going out like a total warrior with all the dudes being slashed and burned and shooting at her.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
And we definitely have a lot of angles,
yes,
leading the eye here, with the claws, the ejection of that little pod there.
Yeah, there's a nice curve, there's a nice curve composition where your eye kind of starts up, then goes down, then back up, then down, then up, and then back down, and then around. It's nice.
Yeah.
Your eye moves around pretty naturally, and it you get the weight of the image pretty good, which is good in this case because you want her death and her sacrifice to have meaning. So making your eye spend more time on the page makes the impact of the character's sacrifice more effective.
Yeah, I agree.
And then I love this. This is a great hero shot of Cyclops smoking some dudes, cooking some fools, I guess. That's a better way of saying it. Yeah, it's great. But then Mystique is the first one for something to go wrong for. Well, not the first one, but one of the shoes. She's not able to disconnect her the arm.
Yeah.
Or because the scientist ejects her out the airlock. This is a great page. Again, nice use of blurring, you know, just so we can focus on the fear and the sort of tragedy of this moment. But it's also shocking, right? So like just sort of have this moment where just like a lot of movement and stuff where you feel like the air is being sucked out. To have this blur, it really shows just how fast and shocking it is that she fails. So yeah. I like that moment.
And it's great that it's also a silent panel because it's sort of that like in every, well, other than Star Wars, where every movie where you either have a hull breach or you go out into space, and it's the classic line, nobody can hear you scream in space, which was what's happening to her here.
Yeah, it's a very cool moment. And this is a hero shot of the scientist, and she's just, right here, just, bloodthirsty for the X-Men. Mm-hmm. I like this. This is a cool way of like, showing off a character's form right here. I really like these lines, how they accentuate her form underneath the costume. It was just something I noticed, and I was like, oh, that's a cool way of making the design. That's something that you want to do with a superhero costume, or like, in a superhero where you have like tight skin suits, is sort of to accentuate the form. And I just sort of like how this simple line is enough to do that underneath her lab coat.
Yeah.
I just it was just something that stuck out to me, and I really liked it.
I didn't notice that until you pointed that out. So yeah.
Yeah. It's just something, that it's probably instinctive for a lot of these comic book artists at this point. But there's there's this practical storytelling, I guess, or, just practical art design thing going on here,
And it almost, and a little bit almost adds to like making it look like she's moving.
Yep, exactly.
To outline the shape of her leg. It makes us look at the leg and sort of, imply that she's moving, she's walking towards us.
Yeah, and to give it a little more color too, because if this was all black or something like that, it's just a nice simple design element to move your eye around not just her form but also the page and the image and around this composition back here. It's cool.
Yeah, and as you know, scientists, when they wear their skin tight outfits over their lab coats, this is normally how it looks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is what everyone at Johns Hopkins is sporting these days. Yeah, but this is the moment where they say that they're going to wake up the AI, and the cyborg woman is afraid that the robot's going to go nuts. Mm-hmm. If they open it up, and this scientist is gone nuts, so she doesn't care.
Yeah, she's lost too much at this point to care.
Yeah. These were great beats right here. Again, another silent beat where, again, just show, don't tell. We know what she wants to do at this point. She doesn't need to say anything. And I really loved this half-page panel right here. I don't know about you, but this was awesome. Mm-hmm. How they broke the panel border right here and then did the exact same expression coming through the hologram, the water hologram. That was really cool.
Yeah, that's like you said, that's a nice transition, breaking the panel border, solid character into the liquid form in that reflecting pool. Nearly the same image, just different solid structure, fluid structure. So yeah, that is great design.
And your color artist that you've worked with would hate these pages because there's no closed lines on any of this right here. So you can't do the paint bucket.
No.
So you got to go in with, the color artist had to go in with a lasso tool and, make smart objects out of all these things and color them in. This had to be a total beast to color right here. All these different, all the reflections and light coming off of different things right here. It had to have been a pain, but at the same time, a good pain because you're an artist and you enjoy your work.
Yeah. I mean, you got to sacrifice for the cause here.
Yeah, but it's beautiful. I love just this seamless transition. But again, a lot of drama. Drama is always heightened by all these images right here. It's awesome. It's a great dynamic shot. I love downward. This is so this is cool. This looks like a low camera angle right here that transitions into a high camera angle. That's pretty cool. And then it's great, to see this panel within a panel, again, have all these lines sort of framing these different moments right here. So you get in this moment, you have one, almost two, this is 3, 4 panels within 2 panels, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. And then Xavier makes a call that's not too out of character, but at the same time, what we've known up to this point and what we've sort of thought was out of character is actually in character. And this sort of moment fits in there as well, because we're still trying to grapple with the Xavier that we know, who's sort of a very wholesome person who values life. But right here, he's struggling, but he understands that he's going to have to sacrifice all the X-Men to save all of mutant kind, basically.
Yep.
And this is a cool moment right here. Very simple. Not a lot crowding the page, not a lot crowding the image, but, just a very, a moment where you just get to see his resolve and his expression. And, this was another, I just liked her expression right here in the camera angle and the shadows on her face. And I love this panel right here of Scott realizing basically now at this moment, no one's basically getting out alive.
Yeah.
From this moment on. This was a great panel. I just love the pose right here. And it was isolated and in black. So this white background doesn't do it much justice, but on the page, it's just this beautiful black border. And it's actually cut off up here and down here. So it's like not like a wide screen, but it's almost got these bars right here. And it just, so it's heavy. It's a heavy panel.
Yeah.
And love this right here too, the reflection of his face right here. It's so cool. As he's preparing basically to be descend Wolverine and Nightcrawler to their deaths. And this sequence I got choked up during with Wolverine and Nightcrawler. This is a great exchange between them. I love that panel. Silence. Yeah, and then just followed by that right there. I like how this series is focused mostly on how good of a leader Scott is, Yeah. This series is interesting as far as where it takes the X-Men, but it keeps them in character and sort of takes them almost back to their roots of what they always were, at the beginning when Lee and Kirby started them out. So Cyclops is the team leader, right? And of course, but then Xavier's the mentor and all that jazz, and Magneto's the one who's obsessed with deification and things, and so it's cool. But I love this. This is sort of the first moment where of the issue that you have to have the obligatory religious conversation. But it also fits with Kurt's Catholic, right? Yeah. So there's this moment where Wolverine's talking about, if he dies, where is he going to wake up? And there's this nice moment with him and Kurt says that he's going to be waiting for him when he wakes up. That was just a nice moment, I thought.
Yeah, it was very very much in character for both of these guys.
Yeah, and it draws upon their history together in all the other comics as well, because Wolverine has a different relationship with everyone, but there are certain people that he has very special, close relationships with, and Nightcrawler's one of them. Mm-hmm. I don't know that much about X-Men comics, but I know that.
Yeah. And the glowing effect sort of makes it more ominous. Like we know something epic is coming with this bright, light shining in, and with the conversation they just had, it's fitting as well.
Yeah, the heavenly glow. Yeah, and but them being being almost consumed by the light, which is foreshadowing what's just about to happen, and radiant and with open arms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I don't have the panel in here because it's really brutal, but it's also a really great panel where basically they're both being disintegrated and Wolverine's healing, but Kurt gets disintegrated. But Wolverine, even to his last breath, is fighting to destroy this machine.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's a cool panel.
And the only two that could have did this. You needed the teleporter, and you needed the guy with the berserker rage, who also has the healing factor to allow him to stay out there a little bit longer than anybody else would. So it's sort of like looking at the skill set. They were in the right place, right time, but they were also the only two that could get this done.
That's cool writing right there. That's just a good putting your characters in a place where only they can do what they do. Again, going back to sort of the Wrath of Khan idea, like it's such that movie's so well done where they put Spock in the position at the end where only he can do what he has to do at the end. It's a great moment. And I love, again, a very another theological, philosophical monologue from the robot as it's waking up about, man made him, so man is God, and they are the Titans, and their spoiled lineage. And then while Wolverine is sending this to the sun to be destroyed. And it was just a cool exchange, but it's very heavy philosophical stuff that the guy's spouting out. Some might say, I love this kind of stuff. Yeah.
It is epic and action packed, and going out in a blaze of glory.
Yeah, blaze of glory. While this guy makes references to Greek mythology. It's so awesome. Yeah. And again, I love these moments in each issue. You get a moment like this where it's just light, in the background, and sort of a simple background, but you get this nice lens flare.
Yeah.
And then it's time for Cyclops to make his sacrifice, and he gets blasted by these two. This is a cool, this is a very classic comic book panel with the villain standing over the hero. Classic composition.
Yeah, there's probably got to be at least 5 or 6 Daredevil covers where he's standing over Bullseye, and sort of the aftermath of their battle. That's very similar. I think it's like Daredevil 201. It's very similar. The victor standing over top of the huddled victim of, or not the victim, the person who lost the fight. So yeah, I agree. We've seen this a lot.
Yeah, there's some heavy archetype symbolism here. Yeah, but where this book goes the next step, where she's she just stuns him, would be typical for a superhero book, right? For the superhero just to be down and stunned. But then she goes the next level with her Nerf gun and blasts him. This panel was very I looked at this and I was like, what this looks like? It looks like a Lee Weeks panel, doesn't it?
A little bit. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just sort of how it was drawn. I was like, oh, this looks almost like our buddy Lee Weeks drew this.
So, but when this character is standing over Cyclops with the with the two gun attachments on our hands. That's enough to make Cable
Yeah.
or Deadpool a little envious with those big guns.
She's missing all the pouches though.
Yeah.
Needs pouches. Yeah.
Well, she wouldn't be able to open anything in the pouches with two gun hands. So.
True. That's true. Yeah. She needs at least one cybernetic arm that just looks like a regular arm. Yeah. But I like this shot. I love all the reflections in this issue. It's pretty great to see that. And again, like it's a hard, I wonder what their deadlines were like on this issue, because they really pushed it as far as all the cool camera angles and all the reflections and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
This is hard stuff to work out to make it not look sucky, you know?
Yeah.
So it's pretty great to see that in this issue, but I'd be interested to know what their deadlines were like for this book. But I love this transition right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, into the scream. It's very horrific, you know? You get the weight again.
Yeah.
Then this shot right here, these guys who we saw in the last issue, they were going to take a while to get there, but they finally arrived and are about to lay waste to Jean.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a cool page. I thought, you know, there's a lot going on in this page, but I never felt like anything was shortchanged in it.
No, it's you definitely get the big beat on the major action. It flows really well.
Yeah. And I wonder, like, you know, with any other writer, would they have made this a splash page, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Same with some other panels in here. I've wondered that. I'm like, would this be a splash or a double page spread? But
yeah,
Hickman and other writers are there are some writers out there who are sort of against stuff like that.
Well, and it's not like I don't think we're like, I gotta believe they're not beholden to the 20 pages. That's all you get, you know, if it's this many pages, because it's, you know, it's a pricier, it's a $4.99 book. So, you know, it's not like pages are, you know, limited here. So yeah, I just wonder if, because it was getting close, it's also close to the end. So sort of to keep that pace going. I wonder if that was the decision to not make it a splash.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, just to keep the pace going. That's a good point. And speaking of the pace, like it hits its climax when Jean gets murked by the Sentinels,
mm-hmm.
and then it just stops right here, you know? And at the beginning of the issue, they go over all the cataclysmic events in the X-Men universe where like millions of mutants have been wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all been about that leading up, you know, just about how many people have died to make mutants have a decent future. So basically, besides Storm and Beast and like maybe Iceman and stuff, all the key characters are dead.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of them are, and it's at least half of them are. Like all of the founding X-Men fathers and mothers. At this point, they're all dead, and that's a pretty ballsy move. For what could possibly be the last future or last sort of reality of X-Men,
mm-hmm.
you know, and that it ends on. This is the final panel right here where Xavier says no more. And it started out with that quote from him,
mm-hmm.
and ends with it, no more. And it does it again with the statistics.
Yeah.
This is very Hickman right here.
Yeah.
I mean, his art style is all over this. Was it Pax Romana? Was that one of the pages we've looked at earlier? And that's...
yeah, we did Nightly News.
Nightly News. That's what I'm trying to think of. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very Nightly News right here. But you're looking into Xavier's mind. And
it's making us sort of relive like all the stuff that we've just experienced. We have to experience it one more time to sort of make the impact twofold. Like we've just read the comic, we've just we've seen all those deaths, we've seen all those destruction, and now we're getting some some back matter, some more development, but we're just reliving those images again. So it's a cool design, or extra sort of, I guess this would go into sort of like book design, not really like the page design.
Yeah, it's both, right? Because that's the line that Hickman crosses being a graphic designer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Is that he knows how to design a book, but also knows how to design pages around the book. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess this is sort of the closest thing to this is a double page spread right here, right?
Yeah, I think as the book closes, that's how it closes out.
Yeah, there are two, and then there's this one as well.
Yeah, that's the last thing we see before we get the reading order.
Yeah, but very harrowing ending to House of X number 4.
Yeah.
Heavy ending with a lot of emotion behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering how personal this is for Hickman as well, because there seems to be like a strong reaction from the characters, but almost like when this is repeated and this is repeated and this is repeated, like I wonder if this is also like Hickman raging against the machine as well,
In what way?
In the way that he's might be upset with sort of like all the like sort of like how what has happened to the X-Men over the years with everybody being killed constantly and stuff like that,
Okay.
Like that's sort of like he's sort of upset that that's sort of always where it's gone with the characters, is that they always sort of find a way to just wipe out a bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so he does it one more time where like you feel it, in a new context with all of them. Like, there's when, like sort of like the last big one, like they had a huge lead up to Wolverine dying and stuff like that. And it was just sort of used to sell comics. And then of course, bringing him back to life was used for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless if it was good or not, it was still like, a huge marketing thing. And of course, Xavier and Jean Grey have been killed off more times than not. And, so right here, he didn't market that any of these characters were going to die, and he just killed them off, Yeah. And you felt it, So I wonder if like he's sort of, it was just something I was thinking about. Like, I wonder if he's raging sort of about like the characters that he loved, being killed off constantly.
Yeah, or maybe it's just sort of like a statement about things going forward, that we're not going forward. There's not going to be sort of these loops where so and so dies, is then resurfaces so many more issues down the road. It could be sort of like a statement like we're not doing that anymore, but we won't know until we see future issues.
That's true. Yeah. And it might, and it probably is just something to hammer in the emotions of the issue, just so that we can feel the impact again, like you said. So, but I was probably reading into it, but it just sort of felt like the ravings of a madman, I guess. So, but there was that also to sort of show Xavier's maybe madness as well.
Yeah.
And his rage. Yeah. But yeah, Powers of X next. Not as much to talk about here. There's a lot of stuff going on, but I really like this cover.
Yeah, it's classic. The floating heads of all the characters. We've had a lot of Marvel books in the past with the borders of all of the heroes' faces. So yeah, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool classic Marvel cover. And then we start in year 1. Xavier and Magneto go to see Mr. Sinister.
Mm-hmm.
I like this page. I just sort of liked the back yellow light and then the front purple light. Mm-hmm. It's cool to see the colors schemes of this series, but I always like seeing when people do yellow and purple as a color scheme because they both complement each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I like this page because of that. This is just a good page design, I thought too. I just sort of liked, again, the guiding lines around this page where they break the panel borders at the bottom here. I like this moment where Magneto just shoves Mr. Sinister into the wall.
Yeah, Magneto is not going to suffer any fools.
Yes. And then they go into Mr. Sinister's throne room, and there's just a bunch of Mr. Sinisters around in different forms.
Mm-hmm.
And you meet what you think is the main Mr. Sinister. And he's got his smug attitude.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about wanting a cape. This guy says that he's always thought that he should wear one, and he's like, why didn't you say something? And then it like turns into this brutal execution of that guy, of the Colonel Sanders guy.
Yeah, this is very sort of meeting the Bond villain who talks about themselves and doesn't have time to be disobeyed by any of his henchmen. So there was very much like a meeting of a Bond villain with this opening here. Yes,
and it was and again, it was very jarring for me to go from such a serious ending of Powers to this this is such tongue-in-cheek humor, in the next issue.
Yeah, so that's another thing that we're learning in the writing class is sort of like the charge changes, like from positive to negative. So with us ending on such a negative vibe, this is just a change. We went from that negative to the positive. So that's another thing that we're learning in the writing class. So it's example of it here.
But it also shows where Hickman's sensibilities lie as far as what he's writing for.
Mm-hmm.
We sat through Chris Claremont's complaining about that in a talk once, where he was talking about how all writers these days are writing for the trade and all that stuff. But I think right here you see Hickman writing for the issue by issue, where he doesn't, I wasn't reading this week by week, of course, but if you're reading this week by week, you have enough time for the drama and the sort of how the last one ended, the last issue ended, to set in, so that you feel the sort of somber nature of the ending, and then you open it up again with this sort of more lighthearted story, and it's kind of nice, not for it to beat you up because you've had enough time to to focus on the ending of the last one before you jump into something a little more lighthearted. So it's good to change your tone up, but for me, of course, I was reading them back to back, so it was weird, but it shows that Hickman isn't writing them for a trade. He's writing them issue by issue.
Yeah.
And there's a complete story in each issue. Yeah. So, but Xavier says that he wants Mr. Sinister to start focusing more on cataloging mutant DNA, which we've seen ends up being a key part in year 1000 and year 100 as well, where you have these mutants arising out of the Essex Corporation because of their catalogs of mutant powers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to see that be something that, like, we know year 100 isn't a definite future for these previous years. So, but that aspect of it is probably something that is definite, where you have the combinations of mutants based on their genes being cataloged as part of the future.
And this is good. Well, I mean, it's a time travel story, but this is good non-linear storytelling where we've seen things in the future, and then when we see this, we're like, oh, so this is how we get to that point. So there's a lot of planning. There's a lot of there had to be a lot of flow charts somewhere in Hickman's.
Yeah, exactly. And there have been rules established so far that there are certain things that are inevitable within all these different possibilities for futures and realities. In the first issue where Moira sort of explains that she's sort of the guiding force behind the mutant's destiny, she explains that there are certain things that are like constant, and then there are things that should be constant as well. So like she doesn't change. She's changed the future like, multiple times to be like drastically different, and it doesn't always work. So there are certain factors that need to stay the same. So for this universe, they need to kill Nimrod, but they want the Mr. Sinister to catalog the mutant genes like they did in the future with Nimrod. So yeah. But then we find out that through a very comical moment that this isn't the real Mr. Sinister. The real Mr. Sinister is this guy, and he has a cape. And yeah, he blows off the head of the other guy, and he breaks the fourth wall. And it's a cool moment. But then Xavier says that he needs to do it, but he also needs to not know why he's doing it and then forget about it completely. Why he's cataloging all the mutant DNA, I mean.
Yeah, this was, again, sort of, we've seen it, we've seen what happens, and this is a way of Charles sort of manipulating events.
Yeah, which is something that he's always had a problem doing, but at the same time doesn't always have a problem doing. So his gloves are completely off at this point, where he doesn't mind manipulating anything to keep the future the way that it should be, because Moira's shown him all the outcomes.
Yeah.
And then we jump forward to when they first decide to build a new civilization on Krakoa. You get a little more history of the island right here and what it is. And this is Cypher, right? That's the character's name?
Yeah, which makes sense because we've seen that Cypher and Krakoa have been commingled in some of those, either the graphics or the some of the storylines. So we've seen that these two people have, a person in a living island have sort of combined together. So that makes sense.
Yeah, but we also know this is the future because Xavier can walk again, like he does in the present, like House of X stories. But he shows Cypher that there's a, that he can communicate with the island, like the island is saying something. I like sort of how there's sort of this, you don't know what Krakoa is, whether it's something naturally occurring or if it's the product of science. So I like this detail right here where you see the circuitry on the leaves. That was a cool detail. I just sort of like these simple moments. Again, a lot of hands, which we've talked about before. Throughout this series, there's a lot of hands in these panels, which is another thing where I'm like, gosh, those poor artists having to draw a lot of hands on deadlines. That's got to suck.
Yeah.
But really great. When hands are drawn well, they're so cool looking.
Definitely.
And then this half-page moment right here is beautiful, where you get to see the sort of what Cypher, like sort of what that new mutant in year 100 becomes. And with Cypher, so that was a cool moment. And I like there's the language right there, which I'm guessing is a variation of what the language that they're speaking in the first issue, and then the symbols that we see throughout the issues. This is like an older version of that.
That would make sense.
Yeah. And then the island tells them of a history of the island, about these monsters that came up out of the ground. And do you know what they are by any chance?
No, not offhand.
Not offhand. But they, like demons basically from hell, and Apocalypse fought them off and then sealed their portal. And then he posted 4 of his horsemen to guard over it.
Very much an Apocalypse thing to do.
Yeah, but it's also very, throughout the comics, they always draw that Apocalypse is the root of all sort of religion and mythology in the world. So he's sort of like the like all cultures have sort of interpreted him into their own religions and things like that. So this is sort of the Garden of Eden story, where like God appointed like an angel of death at the garden, to guard it and stuff like that. So this is very it parallels that in a way. So again, a lot of religious symbolism running parallel to the X-Men comics right here. But also it runs with Apocalypse being a good guy throughout this series. Like so far, he's not done anything bad. Him and Magneto have been pretty upstanding, heroic dudes this whole time. Yeah. I love this moment right here. It's really beautiful. Nice, simple panel of Apocalypse standing on a hill.
It's definitely sort of that heroic, I've completed my task. I'm just sort of here, taking it all in.
Yeah, walking into the sunset or looking out into the sunset. It's very cool. Very dramatic. Love it. Then Xavier shows Cypher the future that he wants to build on Krakoa, and leaves Cypher to basically blend with the island and create a new civilization where they can all coexist. Then we jump to year 1000, and it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, it does in some ways, but in the other ways, it really hurts your head. It's basically a more wordy ending of the ending of 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Very true.
Yeah, but there's a lot of talk of stuff like the singularity happening with people merging with machines. And there's this like intergalactic artificial intelligence that consumes planets, and they all become this sort of like giant CPU, and like made up of like like a giant planet that's like itself like its own living nervous system that's a computer and all that jazz, and it's complicated. And this sort of race machines want to merge with this new alien civilization called the Phalanx, and they have to trick the Phalanx into merging with them because they don't merge with organic material. They only merge with machines. Another thing I'm just realizing right now, they have the circuitry like Cypher does on his hands.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that till right now, but I really love these moments. I like their design. They're very creepy and mysterious.
Yeah.
But very Jack Kirby.
Yeah, that's you definitely have a celestial vibe to these characters.
Yeah. And I just sort of I screenshotted this just because I liked the panel and I liked all the details of the circuitry, but not drawing the parallels to Cypher's cyber and all the cool little details on his gloves are sort of paralleled here. But they trick the Phalanx into merging with them, even though they're not supposed to. And the Phalanx starts to like convulse basically and merge into something different. And you end on a very cryptic, high concept sci-fi moment. Yeah. And Nimrod is still a possibility because there he is right there acting with these dudes as they are being consumed by this new machine race. And we end on whether or not if them merging is going to be successful or not.
Yeah, this was this issue was a strange one. It was a setup. It's almost like it was a setup issue, and then the second half shifts to like we just tied up a whole bunch of stuff, and now we've just confused you, and we've set up a whole bunch of stuff that now we're going to have to go in and tie in the future. So it's a strange issue. It's one of those like bridge issues, but then it's not actually like a complete bridge issue. So it was interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely getting, this series has not stopped getting heavy, and the stakes, the plot escalates after every issue, which is great. There's no issue where I didn't feel like things haven't escalated, or like there haven't been more questions that arise. It's very cool.
Yeah, so that was a very thorough recap there. So we are more than halfway through both series, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, me too. Definitely.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for putting together those slides. You did a awesome job on those again. I think your artistic eye helps out breaking that stuff down. So
yeah, well, I don't blame it on my artistic eye as much as like just being a weird person. So yeah,
that's not true at all. All right. Well, we will share some of these images from these slides on our social media. If anybody would like to go out and give us a rating or review wherever you hear this podcast, we'd really appreciate it. If you want to see more, you can follow us on Twitter at ConstructCompod. You can follow us on Instagram. It's at ConstructingComicsPod, or on Facebook at facebook.com/constructingcomics. And this episode is definitely going up on the YouTube channel since it's very visual with the slides. I think anybody who wants to see this in depth should check out the YouTube channel, which is under the name Constructing Comics. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us, and we will be back with another episode very soon. Thank you.